Good evening. This is Quintus Curtius. Welcome back to the podcast. It's been a few weeks, maybe longer, since our last podcast, and I wanted to make this one about just comments about a video that I posted on Twitter from YouTube last week, and just some of the feedback I got on that, which I thought was worth making some comments about it. Last week I posted a old World War II training film, which was from the Marine Corps. It was called Club and Knife Fighting. And it was one of those kind of quaint World War II training films that you see where they have a narrator and they talk about different techniques of knife and club fighting. And I just thought it was interesting. You know, you can always learn new things. It's always good to try to pick up tips, because my philosophy is you never know when things are going to come in handy. You never know when you're going to need something. And it's always good to know as many things as you can, because that may give you an edge on something. But I just noticed today that there were some people that had some comments, and some guys were saying things like, oh, that's just worthless, or well, there's no use to that. Knife fighting is bullshit. There's no, it never happens. Imagine being stranded on an island and thinking a knife is going to help you. Nothing's going to do any good, blah, blah. The usual sort of Twitter negativity. And you're used to this after a while, so you kind of get hardened to it. But I thought it was worth responding to that, because I felt like this could be directly refuted. In 2020, for example, Chinese and Indian forces clashed along the demilitarized zone, I guess, which is in the Himalayas somewhere. And like 20 Indian soldiers were killed. And there was a vicious melee between Chinese and Indians that involved clubs with nails sticking out of them, halberds, which is a medieval weapon. It's a pike with a long pike with a blade at the end, and and clubs. So basically, you had a melee just a couple years ago with knives, clubs, and halberds, where the armies of two large major powers clashed and 20 men died. So it's complete. Frankly, it's complete fucking bullshit to say that this learning how to fight with a knife or a club is useless. Complete fucking bullshit. And it just goes to show you that everybody thinks they're an authority. Everybody, when you try to make a point or try to say something, there's always going to be some people out there that are going to try to think that they're an expert and they know better and they have a better insight, or they know this or they know that. But, a lot of times they're wrong. And, of course, I'm not going to sit here and statistically say that casualty figures are greater from handheld weapons. Of course not. In fact, probably the number of casualties from knives or clubs or halberds are astronomically small. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Any information that you can pick up, your attitude should not be, this is nonsense. Your attitude should be, any information I learn, anything I can pick up can be valuable to me in some way or another. I may not know at the time in what way it will be valuable, but it will be valuable in some way. And this is the attitude that you should have. Instead of being a negative douchebag and saying, oh, this is not going to do anything, and nobody knows anything, and this is useless, and you can just as easily take a more positive attitude and say, boy, that's interesting. Let me see what I can learn from that. Let me see what I can pick up from that, because every bit of information you have gives you an edge. See, that's what a winning mindset thinks like. A loser mindset thinks like, oh, well, I don't know. When am I ever going to use that? That's not going to do me any good. And if you want to be a fucking loser, you can think like that. You can cast aspersions on every little bit of information that somebody puts out in front of you. You can be a dickhead. You can be a fucking authority if you want. You can have the last word. But the only person you're hurting is yourself, really. The only person you're really hurting is yourself, because, again, every bit of information you can pick up may come in handy someday in ways that you can't even imagine. Do you think those soldiers who were fighting on the ridges of the Himalayas ever imagined that they would be involved in a contest like that? Do you think they ever thought of that? No, they never did. They never did. But I'll bet they're learning now. I'll bet right now they're changing some of their training techniques to compensate for some of those deficiencies. And you should too. It comes down to attitude, man. It comes down to having the right attitude. It's just as easy to be positive as to be a negative fucking dick. And I think this is something that I'm talking about because I see this all the time with a lot of these young guys. Everything is negative. Everything is defeatist. And at the same time, with all these negative thoughts, everybody's a fucking authority. Everybody's an authority. Everybody knows everything. Everybody has something to say about something. Of course, they've never done a fucking thing. They've never actually done anything. But everybody's a fucking authority. Amazing how that works, isn't it? So, and the other point is about this is that even, let's just say you never ever in your life ever use any of these fighting techniques or this martial knowledge in any way, shape, or form. You're still winning. You know why? Because just by having that knowledge inside your cranium, you are changing your mindset. You are becoming more of a courageous, you are cultivating more the martial spirit within yourself. You're becoming a better man. So no training in any sort of martial discipline is ever really wasted. There's no wasted time. There's no losing. You're not losing anything. So I just think that, if you intend to be a fighting man, which every man should be at some level, on some level, knowing as many skills as possible is only going to help you. It's not going to hurt you. So, I responded to one of these guys, and this guy is not a bad guy or anything. I've seen him. The guy who responded, he's not a bad guy. I mean, he probably didn't mean anything by it. But I'm just making the point here because sometimes I think we have to accentuate these points. You don't know. My point is, you don't know to a certainty. You don't know what the future holds in store for you. You don't know. You don't know. You do not know. You cannot say with a certainty what you're going to use in your life and what you're not going to use. You can't say, because this is the attitude about learning. I see this all the time in other things. People say, well, I don't want to read that book. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. I'm never going to use that. It doesn't make any difference. Well, how the fuck do you know? How do you know what you're going to use and not use? How do you know? You don't know. You don't know to a certainty what life has in store for you. You don't know what's coming around the corner. How the fuck do you know? You don't know. You don't know anything. So we have to really accentuate these points as I see it. We have to sort of highlight these mental deficiencies that plague the minds of so many of our friends. And I think that it's worth looking into. So that's all I wanted to say about that. Just remember, you do not know with a certainty what life has in store for you. You do not know. And so that being the case, it is incumbent upon you and me and everybody else out there to cast his net of knowledge as wide as possible so that you can pull in as many fish as you can. So that's all I wanted to say about that. All right. Talk later.